At my parents' anniversary, I thought I was part of the celebration. I had paid for half of it. I had planned every detail. I had even taken time off work to make sure nothing went wrong. So when my father pointed toward the entrance of the venue and said, "Just go sit in the garage with the extra chairs, it's only for extended family," I actually laughed at first. I thought it was a bad joke. It wasn't. The main garden was glowing. White lights wrapped around the trees, music floated through the air, and laughter filled every corner of the lawn. Guests were being guided to round tables with name cards and champagne glasses. My mother's dream setup was finally alive in front of her eyes. And I, the person who made it all possible, was standing near a concrete hallway that smelled like paint and old storage. My name wasn't on any table, not even the last one. I remember holding the small gift box in my hands, still warm from my car seat. I had spent weeks preparing it, not because I wanted praise, but because I thought it would matter. Because I thought after 15 years of being the one who fixed everything, maybe this time I would finally be seen. Instead, my father barely looked at me when he spoke. "Just stay here. We don't have enough space inside." You'll understand. Those two words followed me everywhere in that family. You'll understand. It was never an explanation. It was a dismissal. Inside the garage, there was a single folding chair. Metal legs, cracked plastic seat, placed right next to a stack of unused decorations and empty boxes. No table, no plate, no glass. Just a humming light above me that flickered like it was tired of watching this family too. And through the open doorway, I could see everything. I could see my brother laughing at the main table, dressed like he had contributed something. I could see my aunt adjusting her dress while sipping wine I had paid for. I could see my mother greeting guests like she had built the entire event with her own hands. And I could see the empty space where I should have been sitting. I didn't move at first. I just watched. Not out of shock anymore, but calculation. That's what I do. I fix things. I solve systems, I find errors, and suddenly I realized something uncomfortable. I wasn't part of their system. I was the system. The party continued without me. Every time something needed fixing, someone else stepped in, but only because I had already set it up in advance. The caterer arrived on time because I booked them. The seating arrangement worked because I designed it. The music played smoothly because I coordinated it. Even the lights looked perfect because I had checked them twice the night before. They didn't need me there. They just needed what I built. And once it was built, I was disposable. That was the moment something shifted. Not loudly, not emotionally, quietly, like a document being closed. I sat back in that folding chair and started counting. Not feelings, not memories, numbers, years of unpaid planning, hundreds of family calls. Dozens of emergencies solved at midnight, bills covered and never reimbursed, holidays organized, arguments mediated, problems absorbed. All of it added up to one conclusion. I had never been a guest in my own family. I was infrastructure. After about 20 minutes, someone finally walked past the garage. My father again. He glanced at me briefly, like checking a storage room, then adjusted his cufflinks. "Don't make it weird," he said softly. "It's just seating, that was it, not anger, not shame. Just inconvenience." Something in me stopped waiting after that. I stood up, placed the gift box on the chair, and looked once at the garden. I didn't feel rage the way people expect. I felt clarity. Clean, sharp clarity. The kind you get when a weight you've been carrying finally sits labeled correctly. This wasn't an accident. It was an assignment. And I had completed it too well for too long. I walked out of the garage without anyone noticing. That was the most painful part. Not that I was excluded, but that I was so expected to be invisible by it that no one even looked for me when I left. That night I didn't argue. I didn't send messages. I didn't explain. I opened my laptop. And I did something I should have done years ago. I removed myself from everything. The family group chat stopped updating. The shared calendar went blank. The reminders for birthdays, appointments, holidays. All of it disappeared from my account. I didn't block anyone. I didn't announce anything. I simply stopped being the reason things worked. At first, nothing happened. Then slowly, things began to fail. My mother called 2 days later, irritated. She couldn't figure out the florist payment. My brother texted asking where the reservation details were for dinner. My father left a voicemail asking why the event photographer hadn't sent photos. I didn't respond. A week later, confusion turned into frustration. Frustration turned into blame. And finally, panic. Because the machine they had ignored for years had quietly stopped running. What they didn't realize was simple. I had never been helping them. I had been holding them together. And once that realization spread through the cracks, everything started to shift. My absence became louder than my presence ever was. I focused on my own life after that. My job. My home. My peace. It felt unfamiliar at first, like learning to breathe in a different room. But slowly, something returned that I hadn't felt in years. Space. One evening, my younger cousin showed up at my apartment. She didn't knock like she was demanding anything. She just stood there awkwardly and said, "Things are kind of falling apart back there." I nodded. "They'll figure it out." "But they said you always handled everything." I looked at her for a moment and said something I had never said before. That was the problem. She didn't argue. She just left quietly. Months passed. The family adapted, in the way systems do when one part is removed. Poorly, slowly, with frustration. But they adapted. And me? I stopped waiting to be included. I built my own life the way I had once built theirs. Carefully, intentionally, without permission. Because I finally understood something that Garage taught me more clearly than any conversation ever could. A seat you have to earn every time you show up is not a seat, it's control. And I was done living under it. The last time my father called, he didn't mention the garage. He didn't apologize. He just said, "Things aren't the same without you." For the first time, I agreed with him. "No," I said, "they aren't," and I hung up. My name is Lena Carter, and I learned something about family at my parents' summer anniversary dinner. It wasn't taught in a conversation. It was shown to me in where I was seated. The invitation had said 30 years of marriage. A celebration, formal garden setup, extended family welcome. So I came early. I helped set up the tables. I checked the seating chart twice. I confirmed the caterer's delivery. I even fixed the broken string lights near the pergola with a ladder I borrowed from the neighbor. No one asked me to do it. They never did. I just knew if I didn't, something would go wrong, and somehow it would become my fault anyway. By the time guests started arriving, I was still carrying a clipboard in one hand and a list of last-minute changes in the other. That's when my mother stopped me near the side entrance. She didn't smile. Not really. She just tilted her head slightly and said, "Lena, we had to adjust seating. Extended family only inside. You understand." I paused. Those words, "you understand." They were supposed to soften things. But they never did. They just delayed the impact. I looked past her shoulder into the garden. White chairs, long tables, glassware catching the evening sun. My cousins laughing near the fountain. My father greeting guests like a man receiving awards instead of hosting dinner. Everything I had spent weeks organizing was finally alive, and I wasn't inside it. I was standing near a side corridor that led to the storage garage. My mother gestured gently, like she was directing me to a temporary inconvenience. "There's space in the garage. Just a few extra chairs. It's quieter anyway, quieter." That word stuck, because what she meant was simpler, less visible. I didn't argue, not immediately. I just nodded once. Years of practice will do that to a person. You learn where arguments go in that family. Nowhere useful. I walked through the side corridor. The garage door was already open. Inside, there was a single folding chair placed between stacked catering trays and empty boxes of decorations. A fan hummed in the corner, struggling against the heat. The smell of paint and dust hung in the air like something forgotten. No table, no place setting, no name card, just a chair, like an afterthought. I stood there for a moment longer than I should have. Not because I didn't understand. Because I did. Through the open door, I could see the garden clearly. I could see my aunt adjusting her dress at the main table. I could see my younger brother laughing with guests who thought he had planned the event. I could see my father raising a glass for a toast. I wrote the words for. And I could see the MCC seat at table 1 where I would have been if I had been included. But I wasn't. I was assigned here instead, extended family only. That phrase echoed again in my head, but now it didn't feel like an explanation. It felt like classification, inside or outside. Us or not quite us. I sat down on the folding chair. It creaked under my weight. I placed my small gift bag on my lap, something I had made weeks ago. A framed photograph restoration of my parents' early years, carefully repaired from a damaged original. I had planned to give it during the toast. A quiet moment, something meaningful. I looked at it now and wondered if it even belonged in this version of the evening. From the garage, I could hear laughter rise and fall, glasses clinking, music starting softly. The life of the event continuing without hesitation. I started noticing details I normally ignored. Every centerpiece on the table had been ordered through me. Every dish on the menu had been adjusted through my notes. Even the seating arrangement had been designed in my spreadsheet. And yet, none of that required me to be present in it. That realization didn't come as anger at first. It came as silence. A very specific kind of silence. The kind that replaces confusion with clarity. My father passed by the garage entrance once. He glanced inside, saw me sitting, paused for half a second. Then adjusted his cufflinks and said casually, "Just temporary seating, Lena. Don't overthink it. Overthink it." I almost laughed, because I wasn't thinking too much. For the first time, I wasn't thinking enough about them. And that felt different. I nodded anyway. He walked back into the garden without another word. The music swelled. And I stayed where I was. For the next hour, I sat there and watched the event unfold like I was observing someone else's life. I didn't cry. I didn't interrupt. I didn't even move much. I just counted. Not emotions, tasks. Every phone call I handled. Every emergency I fixed. Every holiday I carried. Every "can you just take care of this?" That became my responsibility without discussion. The number kept growing. The chair stayed uncomfortable. And something in me slowly started to detach. Not break, detach. That's different. Breaks are loud. Detachment is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It simply stops participating. At some point, my mother walked near the garage entrance. She saw me, hesitated. "You could come out now," she said softly. "It's fine, fine." I looked at her. Beyond her, I could see the garden glowing, warm, and full of people who never once asked where I was seated. I asked one question. Where would I sit? She didn't answer immediately. That pause told me everything. Finally, she said, "We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out." After everything was already decided, after I had already been placed outside, I stood up slowly, picked up my gift, and walked past her without waiting for another sentence. Not angrily, not dramatically, just finished. I left the garage the same way I had entered it, quietly. No one stopped me, no one followed. Inside the garden, the celebration continued. Someone began a toast. My father's voice carried over the crowd, warm and confident, thanking everyone for being part of this beautiful family milestone. I stood near the edge of the entrance for a moment, unseen. Then I turned away. That night I didn't send messages. I didn't ask questions. I didn't explain what hurt. I simply stopped placing myself where I wasn't being placed. Days later, I noticed something interesting. The family group chat slowed, then stalled, then fractured into smaller conversations that no longer included me. Tasks went unanswered. Plans became uncertain. Small things started slipping through the cracks. At first, they tried to fix it themselves. Then they started asking sets each other who usually handled it. No one could answer clearly without admitting the truth. It had always been me. Not because I was asked, because I never refused. And that difference was something they were only now learning to seize. I didn't return to the garage seat again. Not physically, not emotionally. Because I finally understood something that had nothing to do with seating, or tables, or anniversaries. A place you have to earn repeatedly is not a place at all. It is permission, and I was done waiting for it. My name is Nora Blake, and I learned the difference between being included and being used at my parents' 35th anniversary dinner. At first, I thought I was part of it. I always am. The planning started 3 months earlier. My mother called me on a Tuesday morning like it was a routine update, instead of a request for weeks of unpaid labor. "We're thinking something beautiful," she said. "Nothing over the top. You know how to handle that kind of thing." That sentence again. You know how to handle it. Not would you like to help. Not can you join us. Just assumption wrapped in expectation. So I handled it. I booked the venue. I coordinated the catering. I redesigned the seating chart twice, because my father kept inviting people he hadn't spoken to in years, but still wanted photographed with. I handled the floral arrangements, the photographer, the lighting, the music playlist. My mother wanted to feel cinematic but warm. Every detail passed through me. No one questioned that. No one thanked me either. It was understood. That was the word in my family. Understood meant invisible responsibility. The day of the anniversary arrived with perfect weather. Warm evening light, soft wind. A garden venue my mother had dreamed about for years, but never once helped organize. I arrived early, as always. I fixed the table cards that were printed slightly off-center. I adjusted the floral arch because it leaned 2 degrees too far left. I spoke with the caterer when they realized they were missing serving trays. I even helped the photographer set up angles for the sunset shots. I was everywhere and nowhere. Guests began arriving just after 6. The garden filled quickly with laughter, perfume, and champagne glasses catching the fading sun. My father stood near the entrance, shaking hands like a politician. My mother floated between tables, accepting compliments as if she had personally arranged every petal. I stood near the service area, checking final details on my phone. That's when she approached me. Not alone, my mother. Her smile was careful, controlled, like she was delivering instructions she didn't want to own. "Nora," she said softly. "We had to make a small adjustment." I looked up. Something in her tone already told me what was coming. She continued before I could respond. "Extended family seating is full inside. We've had to move some people to the outside section. It's just temporary. You'll understand." There it was. You'll understand. I followed her gaze toward the side of the venue. A narrow walkway led to a smaller patio area behind the main garden. Not part of the planned celebration space, more like overflow. Functional, forgotten. I walked there without speaking. The closer I got, the quieter the event became behind me, as if I was stepping out of a world that didn't require me anymore. The outside section had 3 round tables, half decorated, half rushed, no centerpiece, no proper lighting. Just distant music bleeding through speakers that weren't meant to reach that far. And 1 chair waiting, not even centered, just placed, like an apology that hadn't fully formed. I stood there for a moment, waiting for someone to laugh and say it was a mistake. No one did. A staff member passed by and avoided eye contact. My name was not on any seating chart I could see. Inside the main garden, I could see my cousin, laughing at table 1. I could see my uncle, raising a glass in a toast I helped script. I could face my father taking credit for arrangements I finalized at midnight last week. And I could see my mother moving comfortably through the crowd like she had never needed me at all. I sat down. The chair was cold, unstable. I placed my phone on the table. No plate, no glass, no name card. Just space. Empty space that was supposed to mean something. That's when it hit me. Not loudly, not emotionally, but structurally. This wasn't a mistake. It was a decision. I had been reassigned. From participant to background function. From daughter to utility. From inside to outside. I watched the celebration continue without interruption. Glasses clinked. Music swelled. Someone started a slideshow I had spent nights editing. No one noticed. I wasn't there. Not really. I stayed seated, not because I accepted it, because I was calculating. Years of events. Years of birthdays, holidays, emergencies, and Can you just handle this moments that turned into full-time responsibility? Years of being the one who made things work while never being part of what worked. And now I was sitting outside the system I built. My mother walked past the edge of the patio once. She saw me, paused briefly, then leaned slightly closer and said, "Don't take it personally, Nora. It's just seating. Just seating." As if placement wasn't hierarchy, as if visibility wasn't value, as if exclusion could be neutral. I looked at her and asked quietly, "Where exactly am I supposed to belong in this?" She hesitated. For half a second too long. Then she said, "You're still part of the family, still." That word told me everything. Still part of the family, just not important enough to sit inside it. She walked away before I could respond. The celebration continued. I sat outside for a long time. Long enough to stop checking for recognition. Long enough to stop expecting correction. And something inside me began to shift. Not anger, clarity. Because I finally saw the structure clearly. I was not excluded accidentally. I was positioned intentionally. Useful when needed. Removed when convenient. Replaceable in theory. Irreplaceable in practice. That contradiction had kept me loyal for years. Until now, at some point, I stood up. No announcement, no confrontation. I simply picked up my things. Walked past the edge of the garden, past the noise, past the celebration I built but never belonged to. No one stopped me, not even my mother. That silence answered more than any explanation could have. That night, I didn't send a single message. I didn't ask why. I didn't demand acknowledgement. I just made one decision. I would never plan my own exclusion again. Because a seat you can be removed from at any time was never your seat to begin with. And I had spent 35 years believing it was mine. Not anymore. My name is Hannah Lewis, and I learned what my place was in my family the day I paid for everything. And was given nothing in return but a folding chair. It started like it always did, a message in the family group chat. Mom's 60th birthday dinner. Everyone coming. "Hannah, you'll handle the booking, right?" Not a question. A placement. I remember staring at the phone a little too long that morning. Coffee going cold beside me, already knowing what my answer would be. Because it was always me, the reservations, the gifts, the travel, the coordination, the emergencies. The small things that somehow always required of my time and thousands of my money. And if I didn't do it, it didn't get done. So I did it. I booked the private hall. I paid the deposit. I upgraded the menu when my mother mentioned she didn't want anything cheap-looking. I arranged a photographer. I even designed the seating plan because my father insisted he didn't want chaos like last year. No one asked if I could afford it. They assumed I would manage it. That was my role, the manager, not the daughter. The night of the dinner arrived with polished perfection. Golden lights, soft music, long tables dressed in white linen, a slideshow playing childhood photos I had digitized and edited over 2 nights without sleep. Everything looked expensive, because I made it look that way. I arrived early, as always. I checked the cake delivery. I fixed the floral centerpiece that had arrived slightly damaged. I spoke to the staff about timing between courses. My mother walked in just as I was adjusting the microphones for the speeches. She looked beautiful. She always did when she didn't have to carry anything. "Everything looks perfect, Hannah," she said, smiling like she had contributed to it. I nodded. I didn't correct her. I never did. Guests began arriving. Laughter filled the hall. My family took their places at the main table like royalty, stepping into something they believed had always belonged to them. I stood near the entrance, still holding the event schedule in my hand. That's when my brother came over. He didn't look at the list. He didn't ask for anything. He just pointed toward the side room. "Mom said you're over there," he said casually. "Extra seating." I blinked. "Over where?" He shrugged. "You know, the side area, for extra guests." It's just easier. That word landed strangely. Like something had already been decided without me. I followed his gesture. Through a narrow hallway, past the kitchen doors, into a smaller side space that had clearly not been part of the original design. No floral arrangements, no warm lighting. Just a row of metal folding chairs lined against a blank wall. Temporary seating. For people who didn't matter enough to sit inside. I stood there for a moment, waiting for someone to laugh. To say it was a mistake. No one did. A staff member avoided eye contact when I walked in. And there it was. One folding chair. Placed slightly off-center. No table, no name card, no glass. Just space pretending to be inclusion. I sat down slowly. The metal was cold through my dress. From the doorway, I could see the main hall clearly. My mother laughing at the head table. My father raising a glass in a toast I had written. My uncle praising how well everything came together. Everything. As if it had come together on its. I looked down at my phone. Banked notifications still showing payments I had made in the last week. Venue, catering, entertainment, decorations. A long list of charges that all led to this exact moment. A folding chair. Outside the celebration I built, I didn't feel anger at first, just silence. The kind that makes your thoughts sound distant. Then I started counting. Not emotions. Not memories. Costs. Every birthday I had funded, every emergency I had covered. Every dinner, every holiday, every family event, where I had been both planner and payer, but never guessed. The number wasn't small. It never had been. My mother passed by the doorway at one point. She saw me, paused, then smiled slightly. "You're fine there, right? It's just temporary seating. Don't make it a big thing. Don't make it a big thing." As if being excluded was a matter of sensitivity, not structure, not choice. I looked at her and asked quietly, "Was there ever a table for me inside?" She hesitated, just long enough. Then she said, "Of course there is, don't be dramatic," and walked away. That hesitation said more than the answer. I sat there longer, listening to laughter from the other room, watching servers move past me, without acknowledging I was part of the event I financed. At some point something shifted inside me, not loudly, not emotionally, practically. Like a system shutting down one function at a time, I opened my planner. Scrolled through every upcoming family event I had already started organizing. Weddings, birthdays, trips, holidays, and one by one I deleted my involvement, not in anger, in accuracy. If I was not a guest, then I was not staff. If I was not family at the table, then I was not the foundation behind it. Simple logic. The evening continued without interruption. Speeches were made, cake was cut, photos were taken. I stayed in the folding chair the entire time, not because I accepted it, but because I finally understood it. At some point, my father walked past the side room. He glanced at me briefly, not surprised, not concerned, just acknowledging a background detail. "Don't sit there too long," he said. "You'll be needed to help clean up later." That sentence didn't hurt. It clarified. Even now, even here, my value was still service, not presence, not identity service. I nodded once. Not in agreement. In recognition. After the dinner ended, I didn't join cleanup. I didn't help pack chairs. I didn't say goodbye to guests who never noticed I wasn't in the main room. I picked up my bag, looked once at the folding chair, and left it there. Because I finally understood something simple. A seat you are given only when convenient is not a seat. It is a reminder. And I was done being reminded. My name is Clara Bennett, and I heard the same sentences for most of my adult life. You'll understand. It was my family's favorite way of ending a conversation they didn't want to finish properly. Not an explanation, not an apology, just a dismissal wrapped in confidence. The first time I really noticed it was during my father's retirement dinner. I had organized everything, the restaurant booking, the guest list, the seating plan, the slideshow. Even the speech my mother's insisted I help shape because you're better with words. I paid for most of it too. Because someone had to. The evening was perfect on the surface. Warm lights, soft music. People, smiling like memories, were being made instead of rehearsed. I stood near the entrance, checking the timing of the cake delivery. When my aunt leaned in and said, "You should sit in the back corner," we had to reshuffle seating. "You'll understand." I looked at her. Understand what? She smiled like I was asking a silly question. "It's just easier this way." Easier. That word followed me everywhere after that night. Easier for them usually meant invisible for me. I sat where they placed me, a small table near the service door, slightly out of view, close enough to hear laughter, far enough to be forgotten between courses. From there I watched the evening I built unfold without me inside it. My father gave a speech about family unity. My mother wiped a tear like she had carried the entire celebration alone. My cousins posted photos of such a beautiful night, without ever appearing in any frame I had organized. And every time I tried to remind myself I was overthinking, someone would pass by and say it again. You'll understand. Like patience was the same thing as acceptance. Like silence meant agreement. After that night, the pattern only became clearer. Birthdays, holidays, weekend gatherings. I planned them. I funded them. I fixed them when they broke. And every time I was placed somewhere slightly out of sight. Side tables, kitchen corners, extra chairs that folded and creaked and never matched the comfort of the main room. Always temporary, always justified. You'll understand, Clara. That sentence stopped sounding like reassurance at some point. It started sounding like a boundary. Not mine, theirs. The breaking point didn't arrive loudly. It arrived on a Tuesday. My mother called while I was working. "We're doing dinner for your brother's promotion," she said casually. "You'll take care of the arrangements, right? Not can you. Not would you like to. Just assumption." I paused. "How many guests?" "Oh, around 20. Nothing complicated. You'll understand." I closed my laptop slowly, that sentence again. Something in me shifted, but not emotionally yet. Structurally. Assist noticing a repeated error. "I won't be able to handle it," I said. There was silence on the other end, then a soft laugh. "Of course you will. You always do." "You'll understand," she added, like a habit. And I realized something simple in that moment. They weren't asking anymore. They were expecting obedience dressed as underdansche. So I said nothing. And for the first time, I didn't start making lists afterward. I didn't call vendors. I didn't reserve tables. I didn't fix anything. I just stepped back, quietly. The dinner happened 3 weeks later. Or at least it tried to. I saw photos online the next day. A restaurant table that looked half-organized, missing name cards. A delayed cake. A confused caption from my cousin saying, "Bit chaotic but still nice." No one mentioned my name. No one noticed my absences. Not immediately. But by the end of the week, I started getting messages. "Where's the reservation confirmation? Did you send the dietary requirements? Do you have the contact for the photographer?" And for each message, I replied the same way. I didn't handle it. At first, I was joking. Then they assumed I was busy. Then they assumed I would eventually step in like always. But I didn't. Because I was no longer holding something that never held me back. The first crack came during my father's reaction. He called me directly. "Clara," he said, irritated. "Why is everything so disorganized? People are complaining." "I didn't organize it," I replied. A pause. Then frustration. "You always understand what needs to be done." "No," I said quietly. "I used to." Silence followed. Not the usual kind. This one felt unfamiliar to him. Unresolved. My mother tried next. A softer approach. "You know how your father gets stressed," she said. "We just need you to step in a little." "You'll understand," she added automatically. But this time I heard it differently. Not as a request. As expectation disguised as emotional responsibility. "I don't think I will anymore," I said. That was the first time the sentence didn't work. The first time it didn't pull me back into place. Weeks passed, then months, and slowly something unexpected happened. They started noticing what I wasn't doing. Appointments missed, events half-planned, details forgotten, conversations looping back into confusion. The system they had built around my silence began to collapse under its own assumptions. And still, no one called it what it was. They called it unfortunate timing. They called it a rough phase. They never called it dependency. One evening, my younger cousin came to visit me. She looked uncomfortable standing at my door. "Things are kind of falling apart," she admitted. I nodded. "I thought you might fix it." she added carefully. I looked at her for a long moment. Why? She frowned. Because you always do. There it was again. Not even a question anymore. A role, a script. I shook my head slowly. That's the problem, I said. She didn't understand. She left confused. But I didn't feel the need to explain further, because I finally understood something they never did. Understanding in my family was never mutual. It was always one-sided labor, and I had carried it long enough. The last message I received from my mother came months later. "We miss how things used to be," she wrote. "You always understood us." I read it twice. Then I didn't reply. Because for the first time in my life, I understood something instead. Not them, myself. And I stopped holding everything together, quietly, completely, finally. My name is Eliana, and for most of my life, I believed usefulness was the same thing as love. I learned that lesson early, quietly, repeatedly. The kind of lesson that doesn't announce itself, it just settles into your bones. At 33, I was the one my family called when something went wrong. Not because they appreciated me, because I was the only system that never failed. Birthdays, anniversaries, doctor appointments, school forms, last-minute crises. Everything passed through me. I didn't get asked if I could help. I got told what needed doing, followed by silence that meant, handle it, and I did. Because stopping always felt like danger. My mother used to say it in that soft, satisfied voice. "You're the one who understands, Eliana." It sounded like praise. For years, I wore it like one. Until I realized it was actually a receipt. The foster family anniversary was supposed to be perfect. 28 years of marriage for my parents. A milestone dinner at a renovated countryside hall outside the city. Gold accents, live music. A guest list of 52 people, and me. The planner, coordinator, the invisible architect. I booked the venue. I negotiated the catering. I designed the seating chart in color-coded precision. I handled dietary restrictions, transport for elderly relatives, even the photographer's schedule down to the minute. No one asked if I was tired, because in their minds, I wasn't a person at that event. I was a function. The week before the anniversary, I stayed up until 2 a.m. finalizing everything. My father called once during that week. "Eliana, make sure the lighting is warm. Your mother hates harsh tones." That was it. Not hello. Not how are you. Just instructions wrapped in ownership. I should have known then. The night of the event arrived like something out of a dream I had built with my own hands. Warm lights glowing against white linen. Soft music drifting through the hall. Tables arranged exactly as I had designed them. Even the floral arch looked like it had been pulled out of my imagination and placed into reality. Guests arrived smiling, laughing, complimenting everything. And I stood near the entrance, clipboard in hand, making sure the machine ran smoothly. No one noticed I hadn't sat down, not until the seating chart changed. I saw it first when I walked past the display board. Table 1, parents, close relatives. Table 2, extended family. Table 3, friends, neighbors. Table 4, staff coordination. My name wasn't on any table. I thought it was a mistake, so I checked again. Then I saw it. A handwritten note taped at the bottom corner. "Eliana can sit in the side area if needed. She'll be helping anyway." My stomach went cold. Side area, not even a table. I followed the directions. Someone casually pointed me toward the back of the hall. A narrow storage corridor connected to the service kitchen. Beside it, someone had placed a folding chair next to stacked chairs and empty boxes of wine glasses. No table, no name card, no setting, just space left over. "This is Sam." I stood there for a moment, hearing laughter from the main hall spill through the open door like a different world. Then my father walked past me. He paused, glanced at the chair, and smiled faintly. "It's just easier this way," he said. "You understand." That sentence, "you understand." It used to mean I belonged. Now it meant I didn't need to. I sat down. Not because I agreed. Because I didn't know what else to do with my hands. From that chair, I could see everything I had built. The lighting I selected. The menu I adjusted 3 times. The centerpiece arrangement I stayed up designing. The guest flow I optimized so no one would feel discomfort. and now I was watching it like a stranger outside a glass wall. Guests laughed. Toasts were made. My mother stood proudly in the center of it all, like a queen receiving credit for a kingdom she had never built. No one came to get me. Not once. That was the part that changed something inside me. Not the exclusion, the ease of it, how natural it felt for them, as if I had always belonged there. I stayed in that chair for 37 minutes. I counted. Every minute stripped something away. Not anger at first. Something quieter, clarity. Because I suddenly understood something I had avoided for years. I wasn't being overlooked. I was being assigned. Assigned to tasks, assigned to silence. Assigned to the space where gratitude was assumed but never returned. When I finally stood up, no one noticed. I walked back through the corridor, past the kitchen noise, past the storage racks, past the life I had been maintaining for everyone else. No one stopped me. No one even looked. And that was the final answer. That night, I went home and opened my laptop. I didn't cry. I didn't write a message. I didn't make an announcement. I opened the family group chat, and I removed myself as administrator. Then I closed the laptop. The next morning, the first call came at 8:12 a.m. My mother. Eliana, the florist says they don't have the final payment confirmation. I'm not handling it anymore, I said. A pause. What do you mean not handling it? I mean I'm not the coordinator. Silence. Then confusion. Then irritation. Eliana, don't do this. We need you. That sentence again. We need you. Not we love you. Not we're sorry. Just need. Like a tool. Like a system. Like a chair you expect to always be there. But I wasn't. Within days, things started breaking. Small things at first. Then larger. Appointments missed. Payments delayed. Logistics collapsing in ways no one had ever thought about, because no one had ever needed to think. The illusion cracked quickly, because what they called family organization was just me. And without me, there was no system, just people. And people, I realized, had never learned how to carry what I had been carrying. The first time my father called after that, his voice was different, less certain. Eliana, we might need help with the next event. I almost laughed. Then hire someone, I said. Another pause. We thought you'd want to be involved. That word again. Want. As if I had ever been asked before. As if involvement was ever optional. I leaned back in my chair and looked out the window. For the first time, I wasn't thinking about who needed what. I was thinking about myself. And it didn't feel like guilt. It felt like air. Weeks passed, then months. The family adjusted the way systems always do when forced to survive without their hidden engine. Messily, reluctantly, publicly. And me? I stopped waiting for a seat that was never mine. I built my own table, not metaphorically, literally. A small one in my apartment, wooden, simple, real. And for the first time in years, I set it for someone who wasn't there to use me. I set it for me. Because I finally understood something no one had ever taught me. Being the backup chair is not an honor. It's an absence disguised as importance. And walking away is how you finally become visible. If this story hit you, then you already understand what it means to be the backup's chair in someone's life, the one who gives everything, but never gets a real seat at the table. Don't forget, you're not meant to stay invisible. If you've ever felt used, overlooked, or only needed when it's convenient, this is your reminder that you can walk away too. If you felt this story, subscribe for more emotional revenge stories like this. Comment your experience. I read everyone. And share this with someone who still thinks being useful is the same as being loved. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop holding the family together and start holding yourself together instead.